We have heard quite a few very interesting presentations, I think. If you probably noticed, they were grouped according to the subject of activism. And initially, when we wrote the invitation for a call for papers for this conference, we had this idea about photography participating in political activism. Especially because we have, art, there is a great tradition in art to use photography to raise feminist issues. We could remember lots of examples from 60s, 70s, and so on. And also in Lithuania, we had some situations where feminist issues were hotly discussed, when actually even in this climate of democracy and equality, we keep seeing cases when women are treated as less important. We have panel discussions consisting only of men, as we keep noticing with our colleagues, and so on. So we thought it would be interesting to see what's going on now in the world of arts and in photography, how photography participates in women's activism. And we have seen from the presentations that it does not necessarily have to be about women's issues. Yes, we did see something about Myanmar, very dramatic stories. Actually, I was really moved by your presentation. Yes, didn't know what is happening there, so it was very new, and it was exciting to see what you do with women in Myanmar. Actually, I would like to know more about the results of these workshops. Also, in Georgia, the festival probably. We heard a lot about, in general, about the festival. Maybe I would like to hear more about how particularly this women's activism by using photography, and have you noticed any tendencies or anything like that? And in Estonia, also another moving story about Anastina Troimond. I didn't know the artist, but I'm really glad that through you I've learned about her activities, and also very sad that she is no more. And actually it hit me that there are striking similarities when we have subjects like queer identity, LGBT, and so on, when such issues are raised by women in art. And for example, in Lithuania, what kulturistas do, and especially Laima, it's also like, it's similar. When these women work, they produce great work, and they are known even internationally, but at home, they are often overlooked. I mean, I know from the case with kulturistas, it is the case. They might be not included in the relevant histories, they might not be included in relevant exhibitions, and of course nobody even talks about prizes. It's not considered. So it's something very similar. And also we had, I think, fun with Grace's story. And very interesting pictures. I was thinking about Thomas Struth. He kind of used a similar strategy of telling families to look long time into the camera so that they could compose themselves for the portraits. And of course he was exploring families, and in your situation it was much wider, not just families, social types. It reminds of August Zander's project at the beginning of the 20th century, and also it has all these intercultural connotations and very nice ironic take on traditions in photography which we know from 19th century and even later, and which continue all the time. So Yeah, I just did the overview of what I've heard now, and I wonder what struck you while you were listening to others. Maybe there are some similarities in your practices, or maybe there is something you would like to pick up from others, or maybe I don't know, anything else. Also the question of the usefulness on art in all these political goals, because you do have political goals, all of you, I noticed. So how much we can use art in that, how much does it work? So shall I just pass the microphone?
Gosh, I don't know where to start, but I think one of the most powerful ways that photography can be used to address these issues. That's where it differs from fine art, but I mean that's something else. That with photography, you can actually you can show realism, and you can reconstruct realism to project your whatever you want to address, which is much harder in art form. And so I think photography is just the right tool to use for what we have been addressing today, whether it's gender representation, cultural representation, or all of these issues.
It was very interesting to listen to your presentations, and I happen to know Anastasia. She was really a great, an interesting artist and photographer. And what photography does is that it has this strong presence. Like when you see a photographic image, it's no way you can escape it. It's somehow like you see writing. And if you know the language, you can't help but you read it. It's just how it works. So I think in photography it's the same. Even though the image might be manipulated or something, but you think that you understood, you think that you recognized, you think that you got the message and so on. So basically it's really the most powerful tool visually. What else can I say? And that's why I think contemporary photographers who are working like Anastasia, and like most of you, like you in Myanmar, really kind of working like some kind of guerrilla fighters, because they just like insert their images, their stories, their truths into that mainstream narrative. And it's powerful. I think it's important. I think all of those active photographers should continue doing so.
Yes. Well, it's a funny format to sort of have this kind of telephone where everyone has a different speech. But I was thinking actually about political activism and art, that Anastasia, but also many others who have spoken today, were working locally. And it's not just activism, it's not just making a political point about a certain issue, but working locally in a global contemporary art world where you have to be super general, but at the same time very touching in order to succeed in the market that is neoliberal. It is also quite a opposing, a controversial actor, a contradictory actor. I'm sorry, my English words, they come and go. So it is very important to work locally with your surroundings, and this is already a political act sometimes. On the other hand, this week I'm also a critic, so I review different stuff. And this weekend I saw a performance which was called Mademoiselle X, about becoming a zombie. And the artist really didn't make didn't use any other slogans except for saying that she's embodying zombie. And she really was like a Barbie with a human face. That she's been, as a researcher of a choreographic researcher, she's been working out a way how to really show her naked body as lifeless, looking very much like a corpse. And then at the same time, her own face is very thoughtful and very alive and very vulnerable. And this contrast and being this young, perfect body and making a point, it really worked. Because the context is omnipresent. It's really everywhere. It's kind of women's bodies are not treated as subjects, as autonomous. They're really treated as objects, kind of non-live objects or something. And that this really can also work without making a verbal slogan. So I guess being an activist can contain many things, but definitely it's good to work locally.
Definitely it's very good to work locally. I think it's the only way to achieve real milestones and real results, yes, and making this, let's say, actions much more meaningful, bringing something. So I can. What I can do now is like to put together what you have shared, all of you, and add our experience also, what I try to present in. Also when I was talking about activism and photography in Georgia, and that makes me understand that it's the only way, like you do, like all of us we do. In our case, for example, I would say that there is a real movement and intention from the part of the festival to be a real platform, and we do that, and that brings results. That's great. Because we raise awareness, because we raise discussions, because don't forget that we are living today in a period where we have this like huge advantage, our own media, all of us, which is social media. I mean, we can diffuse, we can spread, like we are powerful in this sense also. So, for example, in our case and in activism, that is, let's say, activism of festival as a platform plus activism of photographers that are supported by non-governmental organizations that are working more and more with photographers, because they have understood very simple thing, truth, that they can work with the photographers who are popular, let's say, who have their own audience, huge. That means that they can bring a lot of people on their own exhibitions. They can assign them to work on very challenging, real issues that are striking for locally or even not locally, and that works. I mean, it's a simple, like, let's say, simple schema, but it works very well in our case. Yeah, definitely it's only thing to do, and of course it can be developed more and more, of course. But already I would say that we are helping a lot. As what I see, we are helping a lot with this, let's say, ensemble. Putting together different elements. Photographers working, NGOs supporting, and financing also. So that is becoming also like real income for the young emerging photographers. I mean, and as you can imagine, in Georgia it's extremely difficult to live, to survive with photography, earning money with photography. So this is where in the festival backing, having social media, being covered very well by national media, regional and international also, and finally that brings real results, because there is after that another stage comes when NGOs are pushing really government, and there are some laws and there are some real changes. So that's the goal finally. Thank you.
Well, firstly, I just want to say that I feel really grateful and privileged to have received education in photography and to be given this platform to talk about and debate concerning the emancipation of women in Myanmar and to understand what empowerment means. And I feel that photography and using photography as an activist model is more important than ever in my country, because of women in my country are not allowed to express themselves through words or question the society. So I feel that photography can, in a way, communicate and sort of give them a voice of what they want to communicate. And another thing is that we have linguistical gaps, because some women, they are not allowed to go to school, or their parent decided not to send them to school. So it's quite difficult and challenging for them to communicate with words. And in this way, photography can empower them and give them a tool to represent and to express themselves. And as I mentioned, like, the workshops are happening now, and we have one only women collective now recently in 2017 October. So things are starting to happen, and women are starting to use photography now, but still a long way to go, because we still don't have any photography educational institution or any universities that offer photography education. So we really need a place for women to turn to receive photography education, or to even to do research on, like, where do they look at, like, how can they have access to just like women photographers like across the world? How will they be able to learn these knowledges? So I feel that it is very necessary and important for us to have a place that we can turn to or look at. And like, we are having Women's Photographer Club now that we discuss and share the knowledge monthly, but even so, the women that are in Burma are sharing their knowledge that they have. So how can they gain more knowledge? So it's like a vicious circle, really. And we are now doing photography workshop in collaboration with Lensational, and we just had the basic photography training. So I'm hoping to have advanced photography training and work one-on-one with the participants from the previous training, and also conduct basic training in rural areas. But it's still like a long way for us to go, but we are doing, and this is a start, and I hope, well, it maybe next first forward or something, maybe we'll have some improvements that we can bring to the table. Yes, so that's our goal.
Yes, but I think they need to have it on the other end as well. And I wanted to ask, maybe the audience has some questions, because you have heard all these interesting presentations. I'm trying to have my separate microphone. So, yes, I hope, I'm sure that you are brimming with questions and to the presenters, because you have seen what they had to show. Not yet? Yes, please.
Always clear.
Yeah.
Thanks for this panel. It was brilliant with so many personal statements, but I'm a bit puzzled when it comes to these prizes and art and activism. So you'd rather into activism or rather into art and prizes for what you do as artists? So what is your definition of this art and activism? Because I think there are very different approaches among you. This is one thing, but what is the other thing that struck me in this panel, which is a kind of post-colonial, I must say, and the feminism is offering us certain tools to decolonize ourselves, so to speak. But in a way, many of the examples of the works that you show were somehow like confirming, or to some extent were fitting a certain frame of the stereotypical visions of the colonized cultures, and also women as subjects, but also objects to some extent. So how do you approach the photography as a tool of this process of decolonization of oneself, so to speak, in terms of culture, but also of you as artist?
Laima. We also colonized here.
Yeah, we were part of Soviet Union, which was a huge empire, evil empire. Mm-hmm.
I just thought, you told the story of Agnė, the Queen of Grass Snakes, the story which we all know very well, but you told it to the international audience here. And I was thinking when you were speaking, how to relate these subjects to others. And from my point of view, you did it very well with all this art project. Of course, it would be interesting to hear what others perceived, because I know the story. And I'm reacting to Adam's question that really, the center is always interested in itself, and when we work in peripheries locally, don't we remain always closed in our little boxes? So.
Yeah, in a way, of course we are local and we have our myths and stories, and some of them are maybe really like just locally important, but I believe that at some level all those mythical stories relate to one another. Like, for example, even this fairy tale or myth about Agnė, Queen of the Grass Snakes. You think about, for example, this snake and the apple and all the tree of knowledge and everything. So it's also some kind of, you can look at it from different perspectives. And for me it was interesting to look at women who were always somehow, whatever something happens in history and happens wrong, then suddenly there is this scapegoat, usually woman, some kind of witch to burn. And for me it was interesting phenomenon, because it doesn't matter what happens, in the end you need to find this witch and to punish her. So that was interesting for me personally, because if you look through history, there is Agnė, there are other historical figures. For example, Rosa Luxemburg, we did another misappropriation project in Berlin about Rosa Luxemburg, who was also killed and thrown into a Landwehr canal, and then nobody knows where was her body. There was all this controversy. So I don't know, I think we need really to question the center, and I really like your project that you were trying somehow to return the gaze. Now we frame you into this some kind of exotic setting, and look how you feel, how we see you. And I was wondering also, did anybody actually ask you, were there some really reflections, were people conscious? Did they get the message, or they were just enjoying it?
That's a very good question, because I was also waiting for one of my subjects to ask me, what is the purpose of this, and why do you want us to pose with our ice creams and sunglasses and mobile phones with a Chinese background? And I had plenty of pictures of the old colonial China and Chinese taken by Western photographers. I was waiting to explain to them. I wanted to explain to them, but they didn't want to know. They just want their picture to be taken and have a print and say, look, we were at the seaside in a studio, a seaside studio. It was rather disappointing, I have to say that. So that's a very good question.
May I propose next time maybe to have this double edition, with some of historical prints next to sort of copies of the postcards you have, just to you receive not only your picture but maybe also this historical.
Yes, I have all that in my book, actually.
Okay.
I was not in art. I mean, for me, it's like very simple thing. Let's say that, you know, when I didn't give the statistics, and it's not only Georgia. It's like don't think that Georgia is like extraordinarily cruel or like there is something special going on. It's like normal statistics, more or less in a few of, let's say, ex-Soviet republics. For example, femicides, yeah, and the number of femicides, it's striking. We don't really see punished guys after that. I mean, that's the reality also. Or guys from LGBT community. We are very open society and known traditionally, historically, for our tolerance, but it happens now that in modern society there is kind of partly intolerance towards the LGBT community, and I don't understand, for example, why these young guys should be killed. Nobody should be punished. So at least if we can do anything to bring, for example, punishment to those who deserve it, I would love to see young photographers, first of all, touched by the stories, first of all, with compassion and with understanding that it's necessary for all of us, for our society and our country, that we pay attention to these cases. So they go, they work, then we show, then we discuss, and there is maybe some changes behind. I think, forgive me this simplicity, being so simple in treating, but it is as simple as it is. Just before I left, there was another case, like a young woman, mother, 26 years old, was found hanged on the, in her house, and they are talking about husband being culpable, thank you, yeah, and his brother, and so on, and so what you want to do against all this? At least let's document, let's call it or documentation or artistic action or whatever you want, just human action. And for example, when Bianca, you've seen this is a long-term project. There was like only a few pictures, very documentary that you have seen, but there were like huge discussions afterwards. Should people go to her funeral or no? Those who go to her funeral also like deserving to be killed or punished or somehow. You want to break this somehow in your society, and you don't want to tolerate. And fortunately, there's a huge amount of people among photographers, and not only like in civil society. So we all have to act. Then, to be honest, when you are on this stage, I can't go beyond that and talk about like art or activism and how art can be activist. Just to, I know that it's not really appropriated to maybe to my case, but you know, when you touch raw things and you have all these people killed, like then you say, yeah, let's do something all together, because it happens because of stupidness of small part of society. And that's all. They are not even cruel enough for that. They are just stupid. They don't want to understand, to open their minds. They have this mind, but they don't have the openness. So, sorry.
Well, not too long, but the problem is that we have to leave this room. I just felt, I've been just told that the gallery has to close, and I thought discussion was only starting, so maybe we can move it into tomorrow, because we can continue, and yeah, we can talk longer tomorrow. Thanks for being here a lot.